If you struggle to sell your coaching, consulting, or expertise outside of referrals, I'm going to break down why that happens in this episode. Because I've seen a lot of brilliant people go out of business, have to go back to corporate or get a job doing what they do for somebody else because of one fundamental thinking problem that massively hinders and infects experts. I'm going to break down what it is, why it happens, so that you can avoid it and you can fix it. So that by the time this episode's done, you see where this shows up in your own business and you see how to resolve it so you actually become more persuasive and get better quality leads and clients. So before we dig into the depths of this, how is it that people with this big, huge problem can get referrals, but cannot get leads outside of referrals? Because this is something that bugged me for years, why my clients struggled with this. And I had to go really deep on why do they get referrals, but they can't get anything else. So let's just look at that. So if you're listening and watching me and you're getting referrals, there's one thing in your marketing that you have missed. And it deceives you into thinking that you have actually a value proposition. And you don't. You really don't. What you have is expertise. You have expertise, but you don't have a value proposition. And let me demonstrate it. When you get a referral, usually it's somebody who you've worked with in the past, an old client or an old colleague, who will basically tell somebody else about their problem that they had, their outcome, and recommend they talk to you. And then when they come on that call to you, you explain what you do. And because of that vouching from somebody else, in effect, they pre-sold you. And so when these referrals come onto the call, they're pre-sold. Somebody else explained your value proposition that you haven't built. And they're explaining your value proposition from their perspective. They'll talk about the problem they had, the outcome that they achieved, and then the process they got to get there. That's the journey, the value proposition that they have given on your behalf. When those referrals come to a call with you, that's already been done. The value has already been made clear. So all you have to do is basically not mess it up. So referrals are brilliant and they're the easiest sales you can have. But when it comes to actually marketing yourself in the real world, and I say real world because it's tougher. You have less attention span. You have less of a fair hearing. You have to build trust in advance. You haven't got somebody else vouching for you. Now, what you've just done to get that client from a referral won't work. And it won't work because you have not built a value proposition. And you might have it in your head, but it's not coming out in your marketing. What's coming out in your marketing is actually your process. What I do coaching, I do consulting, I do assessments, I help you get clarity, I help you get unstuck. They are not a value proposition. Coaching is not a value proposition. Coaching is a process. Coaching is a methodology. Consulting is a methodology. It's not a value proposition. A value proposition is having a problem that you can solve and an outcome you can help people achieve, and then evidencing you can do it with a process, a structured process that gives you predictable steps and success to that. Unfortunately, I've seen it far too often when I look at people's profiles, when I look at people's content, when I look at people's activity, when I look at how they communicate, when they talk to me on strategy sessions, all I see is them talking about process. And what happens is clients don't value process unless they see it taking them from a problem to an outcome. Yeah. So let's think about it as holidays. Yeah. You want to go on holiday and you want a wonderful beach holiday and you want it warm and sunny and you want 2 weeks to relax. Sounds fantastic. I'm picturing it already, right? Particularly in a cold, stormy, wintry UK, thinking about a nice tropical environment, lovely and warm, sat by the beach. Oh my God, how do I get there? And that's the point. How do I get there? When I've seen the problem, cold, wintry UK, and I've now seen sunny beaches and visualize sunny beaches, warm, relaxing, maybe a little cocktail, I suddenly go, how do I do that? I want to do that. How do I do that? They are the elements that most experts forget. They forget those things and they focus on, okay, what you really need to do is you need to get on a plane and you need to book a hotel and we need to get a book and we need £5,000 for that, please. For what? For what? And I know that's a silly example, but it's actually what loads of experts do all the time. They talk about assessments and all this kind of stuff outside of the context of problem and outcome. And I've actually done exercises with some coaches where I said, define the outcome that you actually get people to. And they write something, it sounds really nice. So I say, what's the outcome in there? And they've just described another process and another process and another process. They don't get to, okay, can somebody see how their life will change or their business will change? Is there a clearly measurable way that you can demonstrate that there will be a change? You know, you're now in the cold UK, you're now in sunny Barbados. Yeah, that's a measurable change. Now, many coaches and experts say, well, we can't guarantee the measurable change, so they don't say any measurable change. Nothing's guaranteed. So if you avoid saying, this is where I can get you a pay rise through my career coaching. If you pull away from that, you're basically saying buy a process with no guarantees of anything. Yeah, that's not going to work. That's not going to work. Likewise, you can't say, I can guarantee you a £15,000 raise in your salary. But what you can do is you say, I'm going to give you the confidence. We're going to have the exercises and if you implement what we're going to do, we'll get you in that meeting asking for the raise that you've been avoiding. Wow, bang. Your process is proven, if done, if delivered, if followed, to actually get people raises. Yeah. So we run away from this outcome, but it's the only reason why people buy. It's the only reason why people buy. And once they have become convinced an outcome is possible for them and a problem can be removed, they want the process, but they do not want to buy a process. They are not don't fool yourself. They are not buying a process. They are buying from here to here. This is where we want to get to. Do you give them confidence with your process that you can get from here to here, from point A to point B? If you can help them close that gap between not getting a pay rise and getting a pay rise, if you can help them close that gap, they are interested. If you don't explain that you can help them close that gap with your process, you've lost them. And notice how I said that there. It's can you prove to them with your process you can close that gap? It's all about the gap. It's not about the process. The process is only valuable when people believe it can close the gap. If you don't define the gap, you don't create value in the process. And so when you're getting referrals, somebody else has done that for you. They have shown the other person the gap. If you don't do it in your marketing outside of those referrals, you will never get clients because you're basically selling a process that doesn't close a gap. So you will get people inquiring and going stone cold because you've not built out that value proposition of where are they now? Where do they want to be? What's my methodology to get them there? What's the vehicle I'm going to use to get them there? You're just leading with the vehicle without that before and after. So this fundamental thinking comes from the fact that we are so nerded out in what we do. We're so in love what we do. We know the value of what we do. It goes without saying that we're going to get results for people. So we don't say it. We don't lead with it. And in effect, what happens, and I see this all the time on LinkedIn, we start talking about process on LinkedIn and we end up attracting people who do what we do. You get comments from people who do exactly the same thing that you do. And so that might seem like, oh, I'm building my thought leadership in my industry. But to prospective clients, they're going, oh, you seem to know what you're doing about that coaching thing, but they don't see why they need it. They don't see why they should pay attention, because it isn't about their priorities. It's about what you love. And they will love what you do when they see how it transforms what they do. We've got to take the focus off what we do and put it onto what our audience want. All that we do, as wonderful as it is help people get results. If you can't define the result, you can't make it valuable. And the longer you avoid doing that, the more frustrating and the more at risk your business is. So think about it like this. Process thinking, what you do, how I do it, will make you focus on the minutiae of the journey. But if your prospects don't know where that journey is going to end up, they probably won't want to embark on it. Yeah. If your process is the journey to get to a result, if you are not defining that result, I'm saying it twice because it's so important. If you are not defining where they leave from and where they arrive, the journey is not valuable. The journey is not worth going on. And this is the biggest issue coaches, consultants, and experts face. And there's a whole host of reasons why they face it, from they're spending too much time with their industry. That's a major issue. I see this on, people spending too much time in coaching forums, talking about coaching models and all this kind of stuff, and not thinking about and not spending time in where their clients hang out, their prospects hang out, and seeing how they're talking about it. From a real passion for your topic can actually blindside you and make it difficult for you to market it because you're so nerded out in your own topic. To you've never understood the difference between the way a client thinks and you think. I often say to people when they onboard on my accelerator, I say, right, one of the things you probably recognize early on when you're working with clients is that they are so entrenched in their problems that they're not thinking very clearly. And you try, they're engrossed in things that don't matter. They're spending far too much attention on things that aren't important. And you have this battle with them and they go, oh yeah, we have that all the time. Yeah. That's because, you fundamentally have a different perspective. You are stood outside the problem. You have the benefit of experience. You have the benefit of solving this problem for many different people. They're in the middle of it. You want clients. If you've been struggling to get clients out of referrals, I'm pretty sure you want them, right? The only reason you'll buy anything to get clients is if you think it will get you clients. It's the same thing with what you're selling. People will only buy the end result. The process then becomes valuable because they want to validate that end result's possible. Yeah, if I said to her, I could make you a millionaire in 30 seconds, right? I guarantee I can make you a millionaire. And I'm being ridiculous on purpose. If I said I could guarantee to make you a millionaire in the next 30 seconds, you'd go, okay then, how? That's the process. Here's what we're going to do. And that process then has to mathematically add up for the prospect to be able to see, okay, if I do that, that will make me a millionaire in 30 seconds. Now, I use a wildly ridiculous example there because literally it's easy to think about. You have to spend the time thinking about, okay, I've got a process here to help people go from a problem to an outcome. What's the problem? What's the outcome? One of the other reasons you struggle to do that is because your process, what you do, can actually solve lots of different problems and get people in lots of different outcomes. And because you've never closed off the problem and the outcome, you've never decided which one you're going to go after because you like them all and you know you can help with them all. Because you've never actually fixed them, you're probably avoiding talking about any of them. And sometimes that's because you can help different audiences who have different problems. And sometimes it's just because you've got lots of different problems you can solve. I can solve lots of different problems. So sometimes the lack of a definition of an audience, the definition of a problem, forces you to talk in process, forces you to communicate about the things that are kind of only valuable when they see the problem and the outcome that you solve. And I see this all the time. And it's the reason why 82% of coaching businesses fail. It's the reason why most experts and consultants end up working for somebody else again, because process does not sell. It validates. Process validates. It does not sell in itself. And so whilst you've got referrals pre-selling for you, which is awesome, they're doing that value proposition work. For a prospect, the value is, where will I be after this? Where am I now? Where will I be after this? They will do some mental arithmetic about where am I now? Where will I be after this? And they will do some mental arithmetic of going, this is what it feels like now. This is where I could end up. How much is that worth to me? That's your value proposition right there. And then the process is the validation that gives them the confidence you know how to get them there. Case studies, testimonials, and your process give people the confidence that, yeah, I'm here right now and I can get over there because of that, and that case study is a bit like me, and that process seems solid. I can understand how those steps will get me there. It's worth $5,000. I'll pay it. That's a value proposition in its basic form. But as long as you don't do that work, as long as you don't define the problem, you can't define the outcome. As long as you don't define the audience, you can't define the problem or the outcome. And so you end up left with a process. Now, when you get a referral, you can naturally adjust that process and adapt that process on the fly to that person and that person's specific situation. And that's how you think about marketing. If I just tell people about my process, people will inquire with me and I can adapt and tell them and show them how I can help them with that problem that they come to. Except it doesn't work that way. People don't make inquiries unless they see that you can solve a problem they've got. And so your lack of definition of problem means you get no leads. And so I end up working with people going through this weird situation and circumstance, unraveling the fact that they want to solve 10 different problems, 5 different personas, because of this weird fear of missing out, because of their nerding out on their topic. All of these issues halt them from actually using the expertise they've got and making money, because they're so in their own world, they don't know how to get out of it. They're in exactly the same situation as their clients. Their problem, I know this sounds really funny, but it's true. People who struggle to sell without referrals are so stuck in their own knowledge, it becomes a problem. It becomes, they're so good, so deeply understand their issue, their topic, their process, their expertise. It puts them so deep down the rabbit hole of it, they can't see it from the customer's perspective. And that is why people struggle. So what's the takeaways from this? The takeaways are really simple. Number one, you've got a process. What's the biggest, most valuable problems you can solve for people? Pick one. You can solve that problem. Okay, what does it look like the other side of your coaching or expert consulting or whatever it is you do? What does it look like? What does their world look like? Their business look like after that? Right? And that forces you to define your audience. Once you define the audience, you can contextualize and go, okay, the problem is actually you're a B2B SaaS founder, you've got a sales team, but struggling to actually get them to perform. Okay, You've got an underperforming sales team in a SaaS company. So you're probably not, your churn rate's high, and now I've got loads of clarity. How do you get your sales team perform so you can minimize your churn rate? That's a big problem. Okay, here's my process to solve that. So we actually, you're not burning through money as fast. Your sales team are actually doing the signups and they're actually delivering to their targets. Whoa, okay. If I'm in that situation, okay, how do you do that process? They want to know process now. And that is where you want to be. So just think about that. Think about what I did there. A value proposition is it worth me paying you to get somewhere? If I don't define where I am now, where they are now, where they want to be, the process is worthless. The process is worthless without a starting point and an end point. And if that's vague and fluffy, yeah, good luck. Now, there are lots of intangibles that you can deliver. Intangibles actually lead to tangibles, right? But if you describe intangibles, good luck. If you describe processes, good luck. It's very simple. Where am I now? Where will I be the other side of this? How much is that? And what's the process to get there? Process is pretty much the last thing they're going to want to know. Once they know you can get them from where they are to where they want to be, that's when they look at the vehicle. That's when they want to look at how does this vehicle work? And that's your process. So sorry if this has gone on a bit of a while. This is a critical struggle of many experts. I find it difficult because it's not as simple as, okay, it's just about content and posting or connecting on LinkedIn. It's actually a mindset issue. It's a thinking issue. It's a perspective issue. And, one of the best things you can do is if you're promoting your products or services, go to ChatGPT and say, and post whatever you're putting in there and say, is this a process or an outcome? Or a simple prompt, something like, my customers, my clients they buy outcomes. Is this copy process-driven or outcome-driven? And ChatGPT will tell you. It's a journey you have to go on because all experts think in process. All clients think in outcomes. So experts are from Mars and prospects or clients are from Venus. That's the fundamental shift. And even me, I have to constantly go, am I just describing what I do, or am I describing how it changes people, how it makes a difference for people? And it's a constant battle and at first you'll go, I don't see the difference. Well, clients and prospects see the difference. They'll see the difference. And you'll notice the difference when you start speaking about problems and outcomes. Process needs pre-selling. It's not a value proposition. It's worthless without people seeing where they go from and where they get to. Hope this has been helpful. If it has been helpful, please let me know because I do struggle to explain this one. I have to do a lot of work with clients to really get them to see it. So me bashing something out in 20 minutes, if this has helped you see something more clearly, let me know. If you think I need to go more in depth on this and do more on this, let me know. Come find me on LinkedIn and tell me. Because if you're struggling with this, you'll go round and round in circles until it unlocks in your brain. But thanks for listening. Appreciate you guys. Appreciate you all listening to me. Yeah, get in touch. I'd love to hear from you.